In today's video, I'm going to be covering what is a calorie deficit. What is going on YouTube? It has been quite a while since I've uploaded, but thank you so much for staying if you are one of my first few subscribers. And if you are new here, thank you for coming and glad to have you here. And I'm going to be trying to stay consistent to make more videos. I'm going to try to put out at least one video per week covering a variety of topics. If you have any topics that you want me to cover specifically, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, in today's video, I'm going to be covering what is a calorie deficit. And I'm also going to break down pretty much the whole idea of energy in and energy out, and then go over what comprises of each side of the equation, as well as a few ways you can get into a calorie deficit. And now what really sparked me or inspired me to do this video is that I've been getting a lot of TikTok questions. And if you're not following me on TikTok, go ahead and follow me there. I'm gonna link it somewhere in this video. It's just Austin Chan Fitness. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions regarding this on TikTok, and I figured I'd address this in a more in-depth and long-form video because it's not something I can just go over in 60 seconds. And even though there is a 3-minute feature on there now, it's not something I can go over in just 3 minutes. I think it's definitely more of like a 10-minute video of I really sit down and have a very deep discussion on. So without further ado, let's get into it. And so I don't know if you can read my terrible chicken scratch handwriting, but here it is. So what is a calorie deficit? So first thing we need to go over is that calories are basically just a form of energy. And this is why you hear a lot of the terms calories in, calories out, energy in, energy out, energy balance, if you've ever heard those terms. If you haven't, that's what it's also commonly referred to as. It's referred to as energy balance. And so calories are basically just a form of energy. If you think about it, calories are just what we call the energy units that we use in our body. And so calories equals energy. And so when we think about the equation of calories in and calories out, we can just simply replace that term with energy. So energy in, energy out. That's basically how any organism on Earth works. They run on some form of energy, and we're no different. We run on energy units, and our body needs a certain amount of energy. This obviously differs from person to person, but at the end of the day, we all require a certain amount of energy to maintain our body mass and maintain all of the bodily processes that use energy, because without energy, we die. And then the next thing we want to get into is, because this is an equation, we can have one side equal to the other, or we can have one side higher or lower than the other. And so in our first situation here, you can see it. This is where calories in is lower than calories out, or that means it's more. So if you think about this, it's kind of a seesaw. Then you have more calories in and less calories out. So what this equals to is going to be a calorie surplus. If you haven't heard of this term, a surplus just meaning having more than you need. So when you're in a calorie surplus, this means your body is getting more energy than it is burning consistently. And what this leads to is weight gain. Now, whether or not you're lifting weights, you can be putting on muscle, you can be putting on fat. But for the majority of people, if you just aren't active, if you aren't actively trying to build more muscle mass, and you're just not all that active, then you're probably gaining the majority, if not all, fat. And then the next situation here is that we have what is known as maintenance. This is where your calories in is equal to your calories out. And so when this is equal, when your body is getting enough energy than it requires, and it's not getting any more, it's not getting any less, it's going to maintain its weight, it's going to be happy there, just going to be maintaining. And then the last situation here, and you see that I really underlined it because this is the main topic of the video. So a calorie deficit. So this is when your calories out, it's lower here, meaning it's heavier, meaning there's more calories out than calories in. This is where you're in that calorie deficit state. And in the calorie deficit state, you are going to be losing body mass, whether that's muscle, whether that's fat. That is entirely up to the structure of your diet, and we'll get into the nuances later. But if you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. All right, now that we've established that seesaw concept of calories in and calories out for each side of the equation, let's go ahead and break down that further into the components of each of the calories in and calories out. So calories in, pretty simple. It's just food that you eat and metabolized. I want to make that point clear. and metabolize. A lot of people like to complain about having metabolic conditions, but here's the thing. If you have a metabolic condition that affects your calories in, then usually what happens is that it leads to food wasting, which means that your body isn't able to metabolize the food and it just literally passes through your system and right to your poop. And so if you're having trouble metabolizing and processing calories, then this actually leads to food wasting and you can actually end up in a deficit. And this is why some people struggle to gain weight if they have like certain metabolic conditions. But I'm not going to get into that in this video. If ever, I'm not a metabolic condition expert, but that's just something I wanted to mention. And then on the other side of the equation, we have the calories out. And there are so many nuances with each of these categories, which I won't get into, affected by certain metabolic conditions, of course. And again, I won't get into that because I'm not an expert in that field. I'm just a personal trainer, coach who can teach you about nutrition and fitness. And I'm not an expert in any diseases or anything. So please don't ask. And then for the calories out part of the equation, you can basically break it down to 4 different parts. You've likely seen, I'll put a graphic up here somewhere that you can commonly see around on the internet, but here is my version of it. So the first one you have is BMR, which is going to comprise the largest component of your metabolism. So BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. And so basal metabolic rate basically comprises of all the energy that your body uses just to keep you alive. So this is going to include things like keeping your heart pumping, keeping your brain functioning and thinking, keeping all your blood flowing, keeping all your bodily processes, basically everything keeping you alive and like keeping you from not dying or wasting away. And so obviously, because that is obviously the most important thing, it is going to comprise of the most calories, because if you think about it, this system is always on, like even when you're sleeping, even when you're just sitting on the couch and not doing anything, your body still has to keep running and constantly burning through energy to keep you alive and existing. And so after we have that covered, number 2, we have NEAT, NEAT, otherwise known as non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And so non-exercise activity thermogenesis is going to cover basically everything that's non-exercise, but also activity and thermogenesis, the process of burning calories. And so this is going to be consisting of things that you don't consider exercise, but are actually burning a significant amount of calories. This can be things like walking, doing chores, doing dishes, cleaning and everything, taking care of the kids, just doing work and just moving around, fidgeting, and just anything that burns calories that require movement but isn't considered like I'm going to go to the gym and lift weights, or I'm going to go to the gym and do some cardio. Basically everything that's not that. And then next up we have the thermic effect of food. And so believe it or not, you actually burn food when you're digesting calories. And so it takes energy to make energy. So the thermic effect of food, and this is something a lot of people kind of overestimate. And so they think that, if I eat a lot of food, that means it raises my metabolism and I can burn more calories. So technically, yes, but the other thing is that it doesn't burn a significant amount of calories. I think it averages out to about 10%. So that means if you're eating 3,000 calories, you're only burning 300 from digestion of food. So yeah, just because you eat more food, yes, it boosts your metabolism. Yes, you're burning more calories, but at the same time, you're not burning a significant amount. You're only burning 300 extra for every 3,000 calories. You still have those 2,700 calories that are still going to be going through your system. And if you're in a surplus, you're going to gain weight. And whether that's fat or muscle depends on you. Now, the last one, this is the reason I put on the last one here, because for the majority of people, this is not going to be a significant amount. And I don't think I mentioned this, but this typically for the average person, this is going to go from largest to smallest. And the smallest is going to be EAT, so eat. Not to be confused with eating, because as we covered that in the thermic effect of food. Eating, the process of eating is already accounted for in thermic effect of food. It is not a separate process. So EAT is going to stand for exercise activity thermogenesis. So now this is going to include everything that you considered structured exercise. So this is going to be lifting weights, doing cardio, actively planning a workout, planning for a run, planning to do some sort of activity outside, going biking, going swimming, anything that you plan and actively do it for the pursuit of working out, exercising, training, all that. And then all of these combined is going to be what is called your TDEE. You've probably heard of this term. A lot of people like to say, oh, go find your TDEE and, you know, go on these calculators, find your TDEE and calculate TDEE and all that. And basically, TDEE, it stands for total daily energy expenditure. So it's, yeah, all these calculators are going to give you a rough estimate. And keep in mind, it's an estimate of the amount of calories that you're burning based on all these factors. And now, no calculator knows for sure. And people hate this answer, but it's something you're going to have to find out by yourself. Like, you have to find, if you want the most accurate way to find out your true TDE, it's something you're going to have to, like, just actively track and, you know, practice the process of, you know, playing around with the numbers, seeing how your body responds, and eventually you'll get a good grasp for the estimated amount of calories that's going to take to maintain, gain, or lose weight. All right, and then now that we have the calories in and calories out covered, let's go into the different ways that you can get into a calorie deficit. And now, yeah, a lot of people like to think that, oh, I just say calorie deficit, they think I'm an ass and I don't give it an exact answer. And no more complaining, here it is. So here are some ways to get into a deficit. And now, obviously, a lot of people, they say this, oh, it's so easy to get into deficit, just eat less and move more. Well, yes, that basically is what it boils down to. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. If I told you to just eat less and move more, you probably wouldn't have nowhere to start, or you wouldn't know where to start. So here are just a few suggestions that I found most successful with my clients and with myself as well. So first up, how to eat less. And so a few ways to eat less is reduce what you're currently eating so you can keep up your exact same diet. Just cut down on the amount of food, because obviously less food means less calories. And although this isn't the number one recommended way I recommend to do this, this is obviously an option. Number two, replace with lower calorie swaps. So if you eat a lot of things like sugar or a lot of like high calorie foods, you can replace them with lower calorie swaps. So a lot of like sugar, a lot of dressings and all that, replace them with lower calorie options, and there you go. You have less calories, but you're kind of eating similar or the same foods as before. And then number three, eat more low calorie dense foods. So rather than, you know, keeping the same foods, you're going to replace certain foods with lower calorie dense foods. And if you don't know what the term means, lower calorie dense foods means, so calorie dense is basically the density of calories, and this is going to be determined by how much of the food you have. And then higher calorie dense foods are going to be foods that have higher calories per amount of food, whereas lower calories are going to be lower calories per amount of food. So if you think about low calorie dense foods, these are foods that are going to be super filling, that you can eat a lot of, but they don't have all that many calories. Whereas high calorie dense foods, it's something that you can eat a very small amount of, and they're going to contain a lot of calories per serving. And so, for example, a lot of low calorie dense foods are going to be fruits, veggies, lean proteins, you know, really starchy carbs. And those are going to be really, like, you get a lot of volume for food, and they're going to be relatively low calories. And higher calorie dense foods are going to be things like a lot of fattier foods, because fat has 9 calories per gram. And yeah, just generally a lot of fatty foods, and foods that contain just a lot of sugar and fat. Typically a lot of, you know, foods that taste really good, like, you know, your typical junk foods, your typical sweets, your desserts, and all that contain a chock full of calories just for like a very small serving. Now, after we covered what to do or how to eat less, let's go ahead and cover how to move more. So obviously you can just simply eat less and get into a calorie deficit, but I don't recommend it, because number one, exercise is just good for you. Like, literally there are actually no drawbacks to adding more exercise if you don't exercise already. Like, obviously you could argue that people can exercise too much, but if you're not doing all that much in the first place, it can certainly help improve. It'll certainly improve your health, and also, you know, an added bonus is that it just burns extra calories and you can eat a little bit more food. So some ways to move more. Number one, lift weights. And this is highly recommended because you increase your muscle mass burns more energy at rest. Like muscle is just more metabolically active. So this means that literally sitting on the couch, if you had like an extra 10-20 pounds of muscle, you'd literally just sit there burning more calories than if you had 10 to 20 pounds less muscle. And so that's an added bonus. Also, it's just cool to lift the weights and just feel like you can be super strong and lift a ton of weight. So obviously that's a lot of fun too. Number 2, daily activity. And one of the highly recommended ways to get in some daily activity and also burn a lot of calories that's also really easy to do is just keeping a step count. So just walking more. Like, I think walking is so underrated. Like, if you currently don't walk that much, just go outside and add an extra 10 to 15 minute walk to your day, and then eventually increase it if you feel like you have more time to do it, and eventually you'll just feel like you're getting good workout in, you're getting that mental boost of working out, you get the added bonus of burning extra calories, and also walking just really chill. It's like low impact, very easy on the joints, and just super chill. I just listen to music or listen to the podcast and just keep going. And then number 3, if you have the time, energy, and experience, obviously adding in some extra cardio. This can be something more like intense than just walking, like elliptical, go on Stairmaster, go on a treadmill, playing some sports, things that you enjoy and really get your heart rate up and actually burn a lot of more calories. And the reason I say this is because honestly, weightlifting itself doesn't burn that many calories. Like, you can think about your hardest leg day session and it's not going to burn as many calories as, doing that same amount of time of just constant cardio. Because if you think about it, lifting weights, you're basically, during each set, you're moving for maybe 30 seconds to like a minute max doing a set. So you're not burning that many calories. And the goal of strength, if you want to properly build muscle, then you have to think about it as a way to build muscle, not as a way to burn calories. So yeah, I'll cover strength training in another video, but I'll just leave it at that. Don't lift weights for the purpose of burning calories. If you want to do that, then think about just getting more daily activity in where you're constantly moving, not just like lifting weights. And now, last thing before we wrap up this video are going to be best practices down here. And so a lot of people also ask me, okay, so now that I know what a calorie deficit is, now that I know I need to be in one if I want to lose fat, if I want to lose weight, does this mean I can just eat whatever I want as long as I'm in a calorie deficit? Can I just eat fast food all day? Can I just eat chips and pop and drink soda and eat a bunch of junk food and donuts, and just as long as I stay in a calorie deficit, I will lose weight? The answer is yes. Yes, you will lose weight as long as you're in a calorie deficit, because that's literally all it boils down to, because fat and extra mass is literally just extra energy sitting in your body. So as long as you're in that energy deficit, you are going to lose weight. But here's the thing, it's probably not the best decision for you, because number one, those foods are just really, really tempting. Like, if you try to eat only donuts, you probably wouldn't be that full. You probably wouldn't stop at just 3, and because they're so energy dense, you'd easily go over your calories just trying to get full off of them. So I wouldn't recommend it, but here are some best practices that I do recommend. So first thing, it's gonna be load up on protein, veggies, and fruits. And the reason is these are really filling and they're generally pretty low calories. Like, if you've ever looked at how much calories are in like a head of cabbage or like some blueberries or strawberries or watermelon, it is very low calories for the amount of food you get, and especially protein too. A lot of people think, oh, protein's just for bodybuilders, and I don't need protein if I'm not trying to bulk up and get a bunch of muscle. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, that's technically true, but also protein had just so many other benefits. Like, it helps keep you full. It also increases the thermic effect of food. Like, remember I said that the thermic effect of food is how many calories you burn digesting the food that you have. Like, protein is the highest one out of all 3. And so if you eat more protein, you're actually going to burn a little bit more calories digesting the food versus carbs and fats. So that's also a plus. And then number 2 is obviously working out. I also get this question a lot. They're like, oh, so people say, nutrition is the biggest part about losing weight and losing fat. So that means I don't have to work out, right? It's like, yes, that's true, but please don't be a lazy piece of shit. Like, get some activity, whether that's just getting your steps or just moving around more. like I said, working out and exercising has so many other benefits just besides just burning calories. Like, it's just good for you, and yeah, strengthens your heart. It just boosts your mood. I know I feel better even just walking outside. Like, just getting your movement. Like, your body is made to move. Stop depriving itself of movement and using that as an excuse to just sit on your ass. And then lastly, I cannot stress this enough, be in a small deficit. A lot of people think calorie deficit, so I'm going to cut my calories in half and I'm just going to starve myself completely. No. The smaller of a calorie deficit you in, and keep in mind, the driving factor of losing weight and losing fat is being in a calorie deficit. So that means if you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. Now, obviously, you are going to be losing slower or faster depending on the size of your deficit. But that being said, just because you can be in a large deficit doesn't mean you should. Like, the larger of a deficit you're in, this increases your chances of losing muscle. It certainly isn't fun to be eating such a small amount of food. You're going to be hungry and ravenous all the time, so that's no fun. And the more you feel like that, the more shitty you're going to feel, and also the more likely you're going to be tempted to just eat a shit ton of food and binge. And so please just be in a small calorie deficit. You know, for most people, I recommend 300 to 500 calories below your maintenance. If you're not tracking calories, then, you know, just slowly chip away at the food. And as long as you're making progress, just stay there. And when you stop making progress, then, you know, decide where you can cut foods from and then incorporate more low calorie options. And now that being said, that about wraps up for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.